take that back. We're going to be working tonight on certainty and doing a deep dive into certainty and taking a look at, what gets in the way, what causes certainty to be this great attractor that sucks us in to trying to be certain about certain things in our lives, and it almost always blows up on us, either immediately or shortly thereafter. Okay, with that, we're off to a quick quote. The quest for certainty blocks the search for meaning. Uncertainty is the very condition to impel man to unfold his powers. Heinrich Fromm. Heinrich Fromm, or Erich Fromm. Probably a German name, but I thought that was a meaningful quote, because that whole thing here is certainty blocks us and stops us from learning and growing. And it moves us in such a way that we get stuck and we don't actually expand what we're doing because we're certain. We have a very, very clear model. Now, models that are constantly being tested and whatnot, we can be clear about, but we don't want to necessarily fall into the trap of being absolutely certain. We can approximate models, we can try to use models and whatnot. So, Linda, do you mind if I pick on you a little bit tonight? I pick on everyone.
No.
Okay, great. So certainty is the topic. Where do you find certainty in your life?
I'm struggling with that right now.
Do you want certainty in your life?
I definitely am struggling with stuck state right now.
Okay. Cool.
I think that I'm seeing too much. I get stuck in my own head.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I keep thinking I know what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of actually stepping back and focusing on how I could maybe do things differently,
mm-hmm.
I just assume, well, I've got these steps, just follow the steps. And I'm not really thinking through how I could potentially do things differently, even though I know I have tools available to me to do things better.
Interesting. So when you follow steps, what do you think that actually is? What's your assumption? Certainty. Yeah. And so what are you not doing to check those steps for effectiveness?
That's what I'm not doing. I'm not being effective about it.
I understand that, but John, what do you think Linda might do differently?
Evaluate maybe a little bit.
Evaluate, that's one of the things, and you're right there, Jackie. Evaluate, yes, but how? Let's walk that through to start figuring out how. So, John, how might she do that?
Well, if she's got a series of steps, then do step one and then evaluate the result. How did it work? What didn't? And see if then step two still makes sense, or if maybe a different step two would be more effective. Okay. And what might you do before all of that so that Linda can start checking out how did she start talking about this? What did she say? Do you recall? She knows she needs to do something or wants to do something different, but she's got these steps in front of her, so she just does those. It sounded sort of like a default to there is a default security that comes from that having that certainty of those steps. Absolutely. I don't know if you guys heard the word, but she used assumption. So
I do. I default into an assumed process.
Exactly. And when you assume a process, what has to occur?
Certainty.
Yes, but what else has to occur? Because you're assuming a process here, and I use this. Sorry, I tricked you.
That's okay. I like it because you're making me think.
Yes, I am, and that's exactly my intention here, because you were, you gave me the model to set you up and to cause you to trip over the assumption that you just made, and you know that the answer might be certainty. And so I set it up where the answer might appear to be certainty, but it's not in this case, because it's before certainty occurs. So what needs to occur before you go?
Before I even get there.
Right.
So before I get to certainty, I'm defaulting. I'm actually.
And technically, it's right when you default. What do you need to do there?
Well, I'm not even thinking. I'm just taking. I'm taking this process.
Yep. And questions to self. How did I do that? What might work? What might I do differently? Test. That's what Jackie just wrote in there. Okay.
Why did I start with the process to start with?
Well, you're going into a why, which will actually force you
right
into the past.
Why did I ask why to start with? Because why isn't always the right question.
Yeah, but it's probably the most common one that people default into until they create a new habit pattern. So that is part of the roadblock that you're facing. Barriers, blocks, and beliefs. You've got a bit of a block here, because why will hold you in your past and it'll keep you stuck. So, it's not very effective to be doing that. However, that's still where most people go. It doesn't make it effective, doesn't make it work. It just makes it a habit that most people go. And most people also want to go after certainty.
So maybe the appropriate thing to do is, instead of defaulting to this pattern, this course of action, is to stop and say, what course of action might I take?
Perfect. How come that trumps everything else we've talked about so far, including questions to self? How did I do that? Or how did that work? Or how would I like that to work?
Because what I'm doing is I'm opening myself up for a different direction entirely.
And when you open yourself up for a different direction entirely, what must you do?
Give myself options.
Potentially, yes. But before you give yourself the option, what do you do? And this is, some people will say this is a semantics, Blair, but it's going in two different directions. You're going in, give yourself options. I'm trying to take you in a slightly different way. Hey, Paulina, glad you could join us today. So what direction could you go in? As opposed, I'll break it down to a single word. Give versus what? Give yourself.
I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's okay. This is actually good. Because this is where a lot of people get stuck, because they get into a habit. And you're giving yourself options, but yet you don't have options to give yourself. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
So when you give yourself options, what happens? You wind up in a stuck state, correct?
Right.
where you sort of are spinning your wheels and nothing is actually working the way that you thought it should, and yet you're stuck, but you feel like you're working hard because your brain is trying to think about something that it's an open loop that it can never actually.
You feel trapped.
Absolutely, you feel trapped because you can't get out of it. It's sort of like this whirlpool and eddy pool where you're just getting sucked down, like going down a drain, where you can't get out of it. It's just there.
Well, and then I find myself trying to do 12 different things at once because one of them is bound to accomplish something, but I can't figure out which one of them is going to accomplish what I'm trying to get.
And what happens when you try to do 12 things at once?
I don't actually accomplish any of them.
Correct, because you're not focusing on one or doing the other thing, which
and then
is...
you don't finish any of them.
Right. And Jamie, you're spot on here. That's ineffective. And yes, Trevor, you said overwhelm. You get distracted more than usual, and you get into overwhelm.
Which is why when I time block and I actually set specific goals for myself, I'm much more effective.
Perfect.
But
So
I have to know what my end goal is in order to actually effectively time block.
Yes, you do. So what does that mean? You have to sort of start with the end in mind, but right. You'll need somebody to be able to do that. So there's another model here that's great for learning new stuff, but it's not great for problem solving.
Right.
So what's missing? What do you think might be missing? So do you guys get this? Like, the whole model here that Linda's laying out is absolutely common. Like it's incredibly, people do this all the time. It's not a rare thing. So you're going out there, you're going to attempt to do something. You think you're going to try to do it. You don't really do it because you try 12 things at once to solve the problem. And you think this is going to work for you, but it doesn't. And it's not much different than quite a few now. Sessions ago, Brent, we were working with you, and you were spinning your wheels more or less because you weren't chunking things down. You were looking at too many things, and things weren't working for you. Does that ring a bell? Okay. You got to unmute here. There you go.
Yeah, no, that does. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what worked for you, or have you found something that's working for you now?
What's working for me now is writing down the day before, making sure I'm planning out the next day
right.
What to work on. So I'm not thinking about it.
Okay.
It's
a form of time blocking, which Linda's already doing, which is great. Mm-hmm. Now what I'm trying to do is take you guys up the next level here. So, sorry, go ahead. Did somebody say something?
Sorry, it was a distraction in the background in my house.
Okay, not a problem. So, the issue here is if you're doing that, what might you need to work on? Trevor, you were writing in some stuff here. Love it.
That was actually Jackie. She was talking. She was saying stuff to me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the bottom line here is when you guys start figuring out that you don't have something that you can sort of time block, how might you organize yourself? Because you've got a problem here. And so what's the first thing that you do when you go into, a problem?
Get curious.
Okay. John, you said be curious. Great. What's that next thing? Once you're curious, what do you need to be curious about around the problem?
Is this open to anybody?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go for it, Trevor.
I was going to say questions, but Jamie already put it in there.
Yeah. Ask questions. Great. Now, what are the types of, I don't want who, what, where, when, why, or how questions. What I want is, what's the purpose of asking questions in this area? What's the key result that you need to move towards?
influencing behavior so that you can get more resourceful?
Eventually, but you're jumping 5, 6, 7 steps ahead. So I need the first. Well,
Okay.
actually,
Well, I'd say asking questions to get clarity then.
okay, but it's not about clarity. What do we need to be? If we're going to, what do we have a problem?
Curious.
And we need curiosity.
Yeah.
And appropriate. But this is not going to be something that the language that I'm looking for here is actually a process, not something that we're really big on in terms of mind models, but it's a way of
defining the problem.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that is kind of what I was going for when I said clarity. I thought clarity on defining the problem.
No, but yeah, defining the definition of the problem will provide the clarity. If we try to get clear before we define the problem, we're going to be caught in a loop again, because we're thinking, okay, I got to get clear here in order to define the problem. Well, you can't. You have to define the problem in order to get clear. There is a chicken and the egg in this case. Okay, so with that given, so now when you define the problem, what are some of the questions that you can ask yourself?
After you've defined the problem or during the process?
No, during the process, because we just recognized that we need to define the problem.
What is it?
What is what?
What is the problem?
Right.
So
I need you to, like everybody here, finish it. Don't leave it with an it or a that. We got to state what the it or the that is, because otherwise we're just going to confuse our brains. So, Trevor, what
is the problem?
What is the problem?
What might happen if I don't address the problem?
Not quite, because we need you're again. It's 2 steps ahead.
Okay.
So, what is the problem?
And where is my process breakdown?
That's a good one. Let me get, this is just experience talking. Okay, so that way of thinking, Linda, is spot on. Where is my process breakdown? I would refine it as, in this problem, what part of my process is broken down? Or what part of this problem is...
Because for me, it's never just what's the problem, but specifically within the issue, what is causing a failure? And I don't mean a failure per se, but what is actually causing a breakdown that isn't working? Where is my lack?
Yes, exactly. What piece am I gapped out on? What do I lack in order to be able to solve/resolve this problem? Jamie put in here, is the problem reoccurring?
Right. Is this a lack of knowledge?
Exactly.
Is this a lack of understanding?
Yes.
Is this something that I can fix by studying something, or can I resolve this through a mastermind group?
Exactly. All of these are 100% effective. So how are you coming up with these? Great, because it's brilliant. Okay, they're spot on. That's the kind of resourcefulness that I am looking for from you. So is this also part of a bigger problem? So is this just a chip off the old block of a problem? Or is there something or is this a complete issue that I can just resolve? So all of these need to be identified. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. These are fairly common in relationship problems, family issues, family dynamics. They're not infrequently, like they're not never there. They're not common, but in business, in getting things done, this model of thinking is usually there for people fairly early on, like in the early stages of developing your business and getting a business mindset built effectively so that you can build mind models to facilitate how to think. So I'm going to pick on you a little bit more, Linda. So with that, where can you go from here? And Brent, I'm going to also jump on you next to so think about what I'm going to be asking Linda, and then I'm going over to John, then Trevor. Okay, so I'm going to go with that flow. Okay, so Linda, what I'd like you to do is start laying out at least one model here of what you might be able to do to get yourself unstuck when you've made an assumption, you've gone after a pattern you're certain about. What is the breakdown that you need to do? And then what are one or two? Well, the first thing is go through the first one and we'll see how far we get. But what we're going to be doing is there's 5 or 6 steps here that a person can go through to resolve this completely. So back to you, Linda. The start is you've got the problem, you've got the assumption. What's the first thing that you need to do?
Okay, so I've made an assumption.
Yes.
I'm going to back off of that assumption and I'm going to stop and ask questions.
Now, yes, but this is my question to you. How do you know that it's an assumption?
Well, usually it's pretty clear that I've made an assumption because I've come to a conclusion that has gotten me to a wrong place or to a place that isn't of certainty.
Okay, so you're certain you're stuck.
I'm certain I'm stuck. And
okay.
I realize I'm stuck and I go, okay, this isn't where I need to be.
Great. So
I come to a place of I'm stuck and this isn't where I need to be. So I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to say, okay, I have a problem.
And then
in order to fix the problem.
What's the problem?
My problem is a good example of this is I have a ton of leads that are not turning into sales.
Right.
In spite of follow-up. And so I look at this problem and I say, okay, what can I do differently than what I'm doing now?
Okay, that's one question. Let's just leave that one question there. Brent, what might another question be? Leads not turning into sales or into conversions.
Oh, can you repeat your question?
So
Linda?
What might I do differently than what I'm doing now?
Right.
Okay, so another question then, if leads aren't getting sales, like what worked from the portion she's trying to find small piece? So what worked in there that that worked, that got you some results that you're looking for out of metrics? So you'd be looking at metrics or some sort of results and seeing what worked on there. That would be a question.
Okay, and what does that question do for you, Linda?
That tells me what is effective.
Correct. And when you find out what's effective, what do you wind up doing?
Then that's something I can repeat or something that I can model from.
And or what is the other thing that you might have to challenge at this point? When leads are not converting, okay,
I potentially don't have the right kind of leads.
Correct. So you have two possible. You've got an A and a B split here.
Right.
And you've got 2 issues. And what are those 2 issues?
Either they're the wrong kind of leads.
What does that mean, the wrong kind of leads?
They're leads that were acquired in a way that would not convert because I'm not selling them the right kind of thing.
Sort of. That's a little ambiguous. Can you get it tighter?
It is pretty ambiguous. Okay. A good example would be they come from countries where they simply don't have the funds available to purchase the type of product that I'm selling.
That's right. What does that mean now?
They're never going to convert.
Absolutely. That's the end result. But what does that mean?
That means that they're of no use to me. So they're invalid.
Correct. Jamie, spot on. Okay, marketing to wrong people.
Right.
Okay, so when I go wrong, in this case, it's the wrong people issue is, I would argue that you're marketing to a market that is an inappropriate market.
Yes.
Even though you're getting leads.
All the leads in the world don't mean anything if they can't buy what I'm selling.
Absolutely. So
if they can't physically buy what I'm selling.
Right. Ineffective people are market. Absolutely, right. Jamie. Yeah, it's an ineffective people are market. So that's the first test that you have to figure out. Who's coming in and what is their income level, because you can't sell to people that can't afford it because they just can't afford it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So
and in this case, I know they've passed test 1, so that's not an issue.
Okay, great.
So my market is good. My issue is simply that I have not done an effective job retargeting them.
Potentially, but you're getting leads. Let's just break that back down again. So how do you know that you've done an effective job? Sorry, I want to test out your answer there. How do you know that you've got the right market?
I know they're the right market because I have effectively targeted. My target is only US, Canada, UK, and Australia.
Right.
It is only 30 to 65.
Okay.
It is, it started out as a guru's audience. So Eric Worre, Ray Higdon, Sarah Robbins.
Right.
And a certain collection of MLMs.
Right.
And it has converted since then to a lookalike audience.
Okay.
So it should be within the income range.
Yes.
So from that perspective, it should be on target.
Correct.
They're all leads who have opted in for the 10-day boot camp.
Okay.
So they're all people who are interested in MLM type targeting.
Sure. Okay.
What I am marketing to them is the AMF.
Great.
And related type products. Kate McShay's retail, that kind of thing. Those similar products, affiliate links.
Sure. Absolutely.
So all products that are, reasonably priced within their typical budget.
Yep, absolutely.
So, and theoretically, once they buy, they're going through the coaching.
No, back up, because you just went theoretically once they buy. So we don't want to go theoretically.
And that's where I have a failure on my own part.
Right.
Because I'm not doing enough follow-up on the people that buy.
Sort of, yes. And?
Because when they buy, I should be following up immediately. And it takes me a day to follow up because I don't have that process automated yet.
Okay.
And that goes down to, if I had more purchasers, I'd have an automated system. There are ifs and thens and all of that.
Sure.
But also, I simply don't have as much follow-up as I need. And I don't have effective enough follow-up. Because if I were following up more effectively, I would see more sales.
Right. So what is the requirement to do first? Is that not your problem? Defining what to do next, like literally.
That's my problem, is defining what to do next, how to be more effective.
Again, John, what questions might she need to ask herself?
So you are getting some sales.
I am getting some sales.
So that's some conversion.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess,
So I feel like I have this list of things I need to do, and part of that includes on the emails that I'm seeing convert.
So is there a difference between, you might ask, what's the difference between the people that are converting and actually purchasing and people and just the leads? Is there some difference in your process that's connected to that? And do you have data to sort that out? Like you mentioned you're doing follow-up the next day, you're doing some follow-up, but you need to do better. Can you connect the follow-up to the sales that you are getting?
I don't know. I need to look at that data further.
And how, okay, there's a follow-up question that you got to figure out, John. Sorry. I just about did it for you, and then
what might you do to find that data? What might you do next?
Both
specifically now.
Yep.
Like that I can do really easily. I can analyze my buyers in Infusionsoft. That's actually really easy to do.
Cool.
And
then?
And I can see what I've done differently between who's bought and who hasn't in Infusionsoft.
And what does that then give you for data?
That tells me what I can do differently going forward.
How?
To improve my conversions.
No, that's the what. But how does it?
That's the what.
Yeah, that's what it does. But how does it tell you that? Okay.
It will tell me what actions I've taken, if any, are different between the buyers and the non-buyers.
Is Brandy Schaefer actually on here?
She's watching on Facebook. I just putting her comment there.
Okay, cool. Hey, Brandy, glad you're watching. I'm curious, is the lookalike list built from 100 lead list?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So there's your answer, Brandy. So basically, one of the things, when Debbie was on here, by the way, Trevor, her hand was up. She's now,
I did actually promote her, but there she is.
There she is. Okay.
Just took a while.
Okay. It took quite a while. Hey,
no,
Debbie.
it was, I could see you in here. I just was muting and being off because I had kids.
No worries. Okay. No worries. Glad to see you made it. I was concerned you evaporated.
No, I had the check-in webinar tonight, so
cool.
I was doing that.
Okay, great. So right here, one of the things that I'd like to do is drop away from this technical stuff that we're doing, and I'd like to go back to how to think about this, and I'd like to go about the thinking process. So, John, when you're asking your question, what is the driver for that question? What do you need to get Linda to do in her brain?
Look at the data differently.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you to replace, data with a slightly more generic word here, and call the data is the result or the problem, and you got to plug them in the appropriate spot.
Okay, so in this case, it would be
or information. You're right, Jamie. Yeah, data has to be replaced with information, problem, or result. Okay.
Okay. In this case, I think I'd ask then what would, she'd need to look at the result differently and ask questions about how that result was different, compare that result to a different result, and then draw some conclusions about what to do next based on that.
So what might that do for you, Linda? If you took two results and took a critical look at those two, what would happen?
If I take a critical look at the results and I say result A versus result B.
Yep.
Then I can see that my actions are having an impact on the results.
Okay, that answer is critical, John, and you're going to have to hear it in two ways. So she said, hear it the way she said it. That's one of those two ways. And what's the other way that also has to be listened for, which she did not say? This is a deep one and a tough one, but this is where certainty climbs in. She's starting to preload certainty.
Yeah, it was right on the tip of my tongue. It was like it went from specific to general.
And you need to move it from specific to a different specific. I'm going to teach a brand new concept in a minute or two. I haven't taught it on any of these webinars before, all 40 blank of them, 40 plus of them. So this is going to be brand new for you guys, but it's critical. It is so critical in problem solving.
Man, I want to hit replay and listen to it one time.
Well, I haven't. Okay.
Exactly what you said.
So Linda?
Can you repeat it exactly?
It doesn't matter. It's just approximate because it's not got anything to do with the exact words.
Okay. It's
got with how she's thinking about it. So come I said, I don't want you guys to focus in on the words too much. I want you to focus in on how she's thinking about it.
If I look at result A and result B, then my actions are I'm not sure exactly what I said, but my actions are impacting the results.
Absolutely. And when she says her actions are impacting the results, what does that mean?
I'm sorry.
No worries. Sounds like it might be an important speaker.
Yeah, I do. I need to take it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. No worries. So when you're focusing in on that result, which way is she going? I'll pick on you, Trevor.
Sure. I think I was catching a hint of kind of like, oh, that's it. I have the answer now sort of thing, which to me makes it seem like it's leaning more towards certainty versus wanting to test it.
Right. Well, no, and not even if she wants to test it, she's still leaning more towards the certainty issue.
Yeah, I said versus. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. No. Yeah. I got that. I heard that loud and clear.
Okay.
But I'm trying to get. So, what is the opposite of where she's going?
The opposite would be curiosity still.
Yes, there is a need for curiosity without a doubt, but what is the direction that curiosity needs to go in?
I feel like it's on the tip of my tongue.
I did this one with you years ago, but I've only got
I'm sorry.
Sorry. I do recall this, but
it seems very familiar.
Yeah, it would, but you're the only person that would even have a glimpse of what it might be, unless you studied art.
No, I did not study art.
Oh, I did study art. That's so unfair.
There you go.
You should be getting this, Linda. I'm handicapped here.
So should you right now. Yeah, you should be getting this. Yeah.
Jamie said abstract.
Warm. Thank you, Deb, for bringing that up. But
well, truly,
process, is that like?
No, it's not. It's not just process. It's a certain kind of, and it's not actually abstract process.
well, truly, my actions are just going to show me. My results are really going to show me what my actions have done.
Correct.
Not
Absolutely.
the other way around. I mean,
No, I'm sorry,
saying
but
it
no.
completely backwards.
No, your actions will show you two things.
Because everything I said was completely backwards. My results will show me what my actions have
Resulted in.
Have resulted in, exactly.
Yes.
My results will show me where my actions have led.
Yes.
And my results will show me whether or not my actions are effective.
Right. And if they're effective or ineffective,
what I can do differently.
Maybe.
Potentially.
But you have to have this other concept in there to get all possibilities. Because right now you're limiting yourself to only 50% of the possibilities. But the weird part of it, that other 50% is only one thing that you're gapped on.
Curious about what specific results she needs for this outcome.
Yeah, I am.
Versus the behavior. That's the...
And it is the behavior that I'm focusing on and how she thinks about the behavior. Because you're thinking about what you're doing, correct? Debbie?
And what I'm not doing.
Okay, and now...
That's what I'm not doing.
Yeah, but talk to me about what you're not doing, because that is now sizzling hot.
Because what I'm not doing is so important.
Absolutely. You're getting it. This is it. This is the key piece.
The really important thing is all that I'm not doing.
Right.
Because what I'm not doing is the main reason for whether or not I'm getting results.
Absolutely. This is called negative space. Okay.
And it's what makes the difference between whether or not I succeed.
Absolutely it is. This is critical for you to get this, because what you've been doing is not doing.
Exactly. And it's all of that. It's this big bubble of not doing that I'm struggling with.
Exactly. So what must you do?
I must do.
Exactly. And it really does not matter what you test next. It's that you test. It's that you do, so that you have the room to make a mistake. Because what you're doing is you're stalled out. And this is a mind model that I have talked about on the show quite a few times. It's called failing fast, falling forward.
Because it doesn't matter how I screw it up, as long as I'm screwing it up.
Yes, exactly. How come that's so critical? Now, you don't want to keep on screwing it up forever, but you want to start by not caring whether or not you screw it up or not.
That's brilliant.
You can't afford to care about screwing it up or not. How come?
Because if I don't screw it up, then I can't succeed.
Right.
I can't fall into the right answer if I don't fall into something.
Exactly. And you're doing nothing. So that's where you'll stay,
I'm
nothing.
So afraid of failing.
Bingo.
That I'm failing.
Yes. This is so freaking true of so many people in business. I mean, I'm sorry, guys. Even if you're watching this thing over and over again, I am so glad you have stuck with me this far, because this is the freaking breakthrough, Linda. Like, this is a tipping point. If you choose to take it and you take action now, it does not matter. But you've got to see that connection, that gap, that negative space. That negative space is this vacuum that you've created for yourself, this bubble of inaction that causes you not to do. You have to get in there. And the only way is take that pin, pop the bubble by doing it, and then do more. Fail fast moving forward.
I realize you can't see it, but I've been sitting here with my hands like this in front of me the whole time, holding this negative space, trying to understand it. And that's it.
It is it. Because you're trying to work at something that you can't understand ever without putting something in there. It's a vacuum. It's a gap. It's a non-doing gap. And until you start doing until you start putting effort and energy into that gap, it will always be a gap. And the weird thing about that is the less you do, the more it grows and the more stuck you become.
But it's like a physical thing of its own.
I understand. I get it. I totally understand it. It is. It's weird, isn't it?
It's huge.
It's huge. And it's like this amorphous blob that has no form, no shape. And it's just this vacuum that sucks all this energy out of you and causes you to give it more energy, which sucks more energy out of you, which causes you to feel like not doing more. And it keeps on reinforcing the not doing.
Every minute of the day.
Tell me about it. I mean,
so it's kind of like a habit, isn't it, Blair? I mean, it's a habit, a non-doing habit.
It is.
And I sit and I focus on all these things I need to do that I just can't grasp, that I can't figure out how to put a name to.
And all you got to do is pick one and do. And it's
because it doesn't matter if it's wrong.
Right. It doesn't matter if it's wrong because you cannot evaluate nothing. You can only evaluate something.
It's just like I have to tell you, I was obsessed with Facebook Lives.
Yep.
Like obsessed with, like hated them with a passion.
Yep.
Like had this block about I couldn't put myself on camera.
Yep.
And when I had my last mentorship, we looked at my metrics. And Blair, you met me in Denver. I have this obsession with metrics.
Yep.
And we looked at my metrics, and I hadn't done a Facebook Live in literally months.
Right.
But the metrics on the few that I had done were amazing.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, this is stupid. If my metrics are that good with such a small audience, why am I not doing these? Well,
first of all, what's stopping you? I want to get you out of the habit. You go back every time you get into a stuck state and you question it. Do you notice that you are actually popping into a why?
Exactly.
And that's a major part of holding you stuck.
And what kind of impact do you think asking yourself that question, Linda, is going to have on you?
It blocks me. It puts me in this box, and I hide in this box, and I get hung up.
Yeah, and you're the accountant or somebody who's got this super geeky mind that crunches numbers like amazing, right? Are you that person?
Data analyst, yep.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
I can do numbers all day long.
Right. And so here you go.
So she showed me these numbers, and it flipped a switch.
Okay. And
I started doing Facebook Lives, and I literally did a Facebook Live with my daughter standing in front of a Walmart because we were selling Girl Scout cookies since then.
Right.
I can do a Facebook Live anywhere now. They don't scare me in the least. And it's like, oh, it's not a big deal. This doesn't scare me. There's nothing scary about Facebook Live.
Yep.
There's nothing I can't do.
Correct. Except if you can just keep going.
Get past it. Just realize that it's not scary.
2 seconds. Get past it and realize it's not scary. Actually, there's a simpler way than those two, because if you don't realize that it's not scary, you can't get past it. If you don't simplify it or make it simple for yourself, you can't get past it. But the simpler one than those two that you just said there is simply this. If you choose to do it.
It's just a choice. It's just a step.
It's exactly, because the first step is choosing to do it. The second step is doing it.
It's just this easy little step.
Yep. Absolutely
It's
true.
just sending an email.
Yes.
This is no big deal.
Absolutely.
I don't have to be afraid to fail.
Thanks, John. Thanks for being on here while you could be. I know, and I'm looking forward to seeing you. So, yes, and it's not about failing, because the only way you fail is by not doing. That's the only way you fail. Okay? So by choosing to do nothing, you fail, because you can't improve nothing. You can improve upon a mistake. You can evaluate a mistake and find out what part worked, what part didn't work, because guaranteed 100% of the time, because you attempted, just the attempt means that there's no failure, no 100% failure, because you attempted. Even if nothing in what you attempted works, you now know one thing not to do again, which means that's a success. It's like Edison's thing. I failed at making light bulbs 9,999 times, but the 10,000th time was the charm.
And they made 9,999 interesting doodads.
Right. Exactly.
In the process.
But he also knows what those properties were, because he evaluated the properties of each attempt that he made to find out what worked and what didn't work.
Exactly.
And then he kept on adjusting until he stumbled across one that the properties lined up. And believe it or not, cotton thread was the thing. And he figured that if I burnt the cotton thread, turned it into carbon, how long would it be able to last in an oxygen-free environment? Well, a couple of hours. Well, that wasn't the final one, but that was the one that gave him the turned the light bulb on, as it were, to flip the switch, to give him the kind of thinking that, oh, right now, maybe if I use what other metals, what other elements might I be able to plug in there, because he was using a lot of compounds. Some of them were, all kinds of compounds. And then he started to going back into metals and realizing that metals, although they're conductive, some of them don't conduct that well and can glow white hot. So tungsten eventually becoming one of them. Now, he didn't start with tungsten. I forget what he started with, but it was one of the ones that was out there, and he was able to figure out what it was and make it work. So you can figure it out and make it work too, but you can't do it if you don't make mistakes. Mistakes are required for learning. You can't do it without making mistakes. You can't succeed. Okay? So Wilt Chamberlain had a quote, a famous basketball player, my era of basketball, and it was like 3,000 I definitely know this one. Over 300 game last shots to win the game he missed. Over 300 of them in his career. Like, that's a lot of misses. That's a lot of mistakes. Okay, but he's still one of the most winningest basketball players in the world. Like, I should look it up and get you the quote, but it's a Wilt Chamberlain quote. And it's like, it's amazing all the mistakes the guy has made. And it's huge. And all the times he's failed, but it's all because he attempted. He had so many more wins than he had losses. But if you take baseball players and they're batting 300, they are brilliant. And that means they only hit the baseball 30% of the time when they're at the plate, and they're like gods because they're hitting it that high, like they're brilliant, but they're making 70% of the time they strike out. So we've got to, like, if your batting average is 70% of the times you strike out, you're still going to win. And the weird thing about it is, all of the mind models that I put together here for, if you go to Rewiring Your Mind for Wealth, you take the course, you jump on wireforwealth.com. That's wireforwealth.com.
Rewire for Wealth.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Rewireforwealth.com. I got my technical assistant here. I just made a mistake. So rewire, and see, I can be corrected, and that is useful. So it's rewireforwealth.com. And you go there and you take a look at what's up there. If you like it, get it. But the point being here is that every one of those 63 mind models, in fact, all of our mind models have been tested to work 80% of the time. So think about it. You start using this stuff, you start learning this stuff, and you start turning these into habits. And you habituate on these. You create an 80% success rate for yourself and a 20% failure rate for each problem. That doesn't mean that every single problem is perfectly resolved every time, but it means that you've got an 80% opportunity to incrementally move forward every step of the way. Like, that's freaking huge. That's big numbers. You go to Vegas and you have the casino has a 51% odds of success, and they make billions from it. Just 51%. I've created stuff here that helps you do this 80% of the time, and each time incrementally you can evaluate and move it forward. That means with an 80% probability of working it through, all you need on any single problem or part of, if it's a big problem, you have to chunk it down to the individual parts of a problem. But when you chunk it down to the individual parts of the problem, start looking at that, and each part of that problem, if you do it 3 times, your odds of success are approaching 100%, just with 3 attempts. Like, you do math, like you can figure out the exact number, but it's up there in the 99 percentile. Like, it's not 100%, but it's really approaches that. And the weird thing here is when I studied Chaos, the Making of a New Science, James, just 2 seconds here. This is the book that taught me a whole lot of that stuff here. And it's all about fractals. And in the book, James Gleick, who's the author of it, wrote, defined a way of them testing probabilities. And they had this 7-armed vein, if the wind is blowing through here like this, and there are 7 movements up and down of this, and then a vein at the end with 7 more movements, and it might have actually had a 3rd arm to it, I forget. But anyway, there were 14 billion permutations and combinations of 7 of these lining up. And he used 1 die for each arm. So he threw the dice, 7 dice each roll, to randomly get, does it improve or not? But he built a learning equation. One of the first this was one of the first experiments with a learning equation. The learning equation stated, it was sort of an if-then, early computer stuff, and sort of freaking out, or geeking out, I should say, on fractals. But the whole learning equation thing here was that how many times with 14 billion permutations and combinations would he have to throw the dice if each time the question was asked, if I have greater wind resistance, I don't move. So if there's greater wind resistance in this thing, I don't move. So whatever that is. So I don't move because it's going to be greater. So what is it just with that one evaluation, one true evaluation? How many times? And how many rolls of the dice does it take to get this thing aligned so that it is in the most perfect, least wind resistance possible? And the weirdest answers came out. If you roll the dice 10 times, you're approaching 100% probability. If you roll the dice 7 times, you're well in excess of 80% probability. If you roll your dice 3 times, you're at about a 50-50 odds of success, of actually getting everything aligned, even just as few as 3. The second you go down to 2, the odds just, no, it's not going to happen. But what are our common numbers that we have in life? Like lucky 7, the 3, it's another prime number. 10 times is a common thing. If you just try things 10 times, you'll probably make it. And that's the odds of success, that if you actually apply, and this is what I found in doing my own research, before I found James Gluck's book, Chaos, The Making of a New Science. Before I found that book, I found that if individuals actually evaluated 10 times in a row that problem, they almost always resolved their issue before the 10th time or at the 10th time. So it was, I don't know, in thousands of students going through this, I might have had a handful, 5, 6 people that it didn't work for perfectly. The next time it was, but then upon examining it, they usually made judgments about their stuff, not a true evaluation. They made a judgment. And that was at least arguably 3 or 4 of those. They didn't agree with me, but I'll take their disagreement and just throw it into the stats because it's reasonable. It's not perfect. But when people do effective evaluations, the odds of them being successful are astronomically high. And you're not effectively evaluating. You're making a judgment call saying, I'm afraid to do Facebook Lives because I'm afraid to do Facebook Lives. I don't like being on camera. Therefore, I'll stop because I won't get the numbers. I won't get this. I won't get that. I don't want to do it. And that sort of thing. So, it's right there for you. The numbers were there. And then you just chose to do it. And I bet you within 10 attempts of doing a Facebook Live, you got comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
Ta-da, probably 7, probably a lot more comfortable, at least half of your stress left after your first 3 attempts.
Yep.
And at 7, you're almost feeling fine. And at 10, it's like, no sweat. These are the patterns of success. These are not random. These are the universal patterns that exist. Mind models work off these kind of universal patterns. They are the same patterns that you already have in your brain. They're already there. And we go after things that are certain, but are untestable. We call them certainty, but they're assumption-based. Mm-hmm. I'm certain I don't like doing, Facebook Lives. I'm certain this won't work for me. How do you know? How do you know? Well, I don't. I won't do it because I'm certain I won't like it. Well, I'm certain you won't like it too because, again, Henry Ford's quote there, if you think you can't, you can't. If you think you can, you can. So
green
both
eggs
are true.
And ham.
Sorry?
It's green eggs and ham.
Absolutely. It is. Yep. Absolutely. So these are the fundamental pieces that we have to challenge in ourselves, have to challenge. Because if we don't, we hold ourselves stuck. And the biggest issue of holding ourselves stuck is holding ourselves in negative space. Because that thing that you were doing with your hands there, and you were just holding this thing in front of you, that negative space,
mm-hmm.
all your energy is going into that negative space. It's getting sucked into that, and it's doing nothing. You cannot move when you're stuck in that vacuum of nothingness because you're not doing anything. You're not even failing to figure out what part of that failure was effective, because just the act of simply doing it means you did something that can be figured out to not do. So it's one thing not to do. So you can move away from that, and it gives you a direction. And in fact, all you have to do is make 2 mistakes in a row, and you start figuring out a pattern. Is there a pattern between these 2 mistakes? And usually, again, about 50% of the time, there is a pattern. And with 3, there is almost always a pattern of 3 mistakes in a row will give you clear direction on where not to go. So now you've eliminated half the circle. I don't want to go over here. I want to go somewhere over here. Great. So now let's start figuring out that's somewhere over here and start applying that to ourselves. And we can turn everything around in our life because of that. And that's what mind models do. They help us gain the clarity, the simplicity to make decisions and evaluate, and to pull away from the whole area of being stuck in certainty. Being stuck in certainty is, frankly, it's almost a death sentence, because you are certain that it won't work. Therefore, you're right. It won't work because you won't do anything. And that's it. Okay. Takeaways. Linda, what worked for you?
That is the most powerful ability to just take a space that I've been carrying and holding and let it go.
Yes. And how do you let it go?
Incredible. Just being able to pick up this empty space and say, you know what? I don't have to own you anymore. Mm-hmm. Because I can do something now.
Yes.
Because I can do anything now.
Literally, you can. We can do virtually anything. Sometimes we have physical limitations, but apart from those things, anything within our physical limitations, we can do. And we can do way more than what we think we can do.
Anything I do, I can evaluate and figure out whether it worked.
Absolutely. 100%.
And the weight that's lifted from that is so immense.
Yep. It removes the accidental self-imprisonment most people put themselves in.
Yes.
And it's accidental. It's not intentional. It's fully accidental. And it's brought about only because we haven't found some different way to approach it. And that's how come getting mind models out to people, for me, is so critical. It's absolutely critical, because mind models gives us freedom when it frees our mind, because we have a model, a way to think that increases our probability for success. And everyone that I've done to date and promote out there has been tested to be approximately 80% or better of the time it will work. Okay, that's it. Okay. I love that. Linda's voice changed, way more confidence in self. Absolutely true. Yeah, I hear it loud and clear too, Jackie. Yep. Taking action. She can let it go. By taking action, she can let it go. Absolutely. Jackie also said, bravo. Jamie said, great. Good job. Good for you, Linda. So yeah, I concur with all of that and above. Like, this is, huge. It's huge. Take action. I mean, other people say, take massive action. I go, you know what? Just take frickin' action. Take a small action. I don't need it to be massive. Massive can be scary, intimidating. If you want huge success, fine, take massive action. But if you just want success and you want to do it incrementally, you will learn how to create a win for yourself by taking a small action and breaking that bubble and getting yourself in gear. And then you can start taking more and more and more action, and it will become massive action relative to how you were. And when you're doing it, it'll just seem like, normal, because you've habituated to it. It's your new normal. And that new normal means that you're successful. Okay, cool. So how effective was tonight for you on a scale of 1 to 10?
12.
Cool. Great. Debbie, we didn't spend much time on you tonight. That's okay. Thanks for jumping on. So what worked for you tonight?
What worked for me is during that discussion, I became aware of a place where I have had fear keeping me from taking action that I wasn't aware of.
Cool.
So I've become aware of that, noticed it. We're going to be aware and notice more.
And do what?
And take action on it.
Thank you. That is the key, because just being aware and taking action it doesn't do anything. Okay, Brent, what worked for you? I think Jackie, Trevor, Jackie's got her hand up. Oh, okay. Brent, go ahead.
All right. So what worked for me was what you said was in the negative space, like what is it I'm not doing?
Yes.
I usually look at it as like, what can I do differently? If I have a problem, I did something, but this is what I did. What will I do? Something different. What can I do? Something different. I didn't use it, the same way, but looking at it that way, maybe that's something to keep in mind and to just do something. Because there are times when I don't want to fail doing something when everybody's looking at me. It's very uncomfortable. I don't mind failing and doing something when no one's looking at me and I'm just doing something. I don't care. But then when all the eyes are on you, you get the pressure. If you mess up, I can remember for as long as I can that's always been there. That maybe because every time you're in sports or coaching, I think that's what it was. If you mess up, everybody sees it, and then that's all they hound on is that you messed up, and then all of a sudden you're not playing. You lose something because you made one mistake. They're not giving you a chance to capitalize on it. So the pressure there to not make a mistake is huge.
But there is a reframe for that, which we didn't get into tonight. But the reframe for that simply is, great, I made a mistake. I now know what not to do next game, next time. I now know what not to do.
Absolutely. But there's like some of that pressure. There's like, even if you make that mistake, the chance of you sometimes getting the opportunity to correct that mistake is limited. Sometimes you make that mistake and you won't get that opportunity. So
but when you state it out loud to the people that are accusing you and you go, great. I mean, we have this guy, he's somewhere over in Eastern Europe, sort of like Slavic, not Ukraine, but Serbia, Bosnia, Serbia area. And I don't think it's one of the M countries. And Mustafa is his name. Anyway, Mustafa is brilliant at this stuff. And he goes, no, great. No, I want to know what my mistake was. I need to know that so that I can do that. And the problem is that nobody gets a chance to ride him on the mistake because he's so eager to learn from it that he takes away any possibility of anybody sort of ragging on him for making a mistake. He just steps into it and goes, yeah, I did. And I get to learn from that. I get to learn from that. It's not like I have to learn from that. He views it absolutely as a huge opportunity. And it's huge. So just sharing that, if you flip that into your mind and start saying this to yourself, I get to learn from this. And enjoy that. Walk into that opportunity of learning. It's huge, and it's also empowering and uplifting because it just you rise up with that, and you feel better because your soul is like, hey, I don't have to be perfect, and I get to learn.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Great. 1 to 10 for you tonight.
8.
Perfect. Thank you. Jackie, you wanted to jump on here?
Oh, yes. Linda. Wow, that's so awesome. You know what? I remember, and you know what, Blair? You have actually introduced negative space before, and I just was typing as you said it. I was just like, oh, right. And it's so cool. And I think Debbie really picked up something on it as well. And I've just realized that, wow, there's so many things I don't even know what's available to just do to make a mistake. So it's kind of, it's a big, wide aha moment for me too. And I just think it looks fabulous on you, Linda. Look at you. You're just glowing.
Thank you.
Itchy. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear your updates. I'm tingling just thinking about it.
Cool.
Blair, yes. Well, it was huge for me this evening. Do you evaluate on emotion or anyway? No, honestly, no. I really, really enjoyed the way that the show was run tonight. The examples were more pulled from facts and knowledge as much, which were fitting perfectly. I love the description about the chaos and all of that. I found those things really helpful for me. And it also kept me out of an emotional content when we sometimes talk about stories about how people have negatively been affected. So that really worked well for me. Thank you.
Super.
10 out of 10.
Thank
I
you.
A billion trillion, but I'm not allowed.
Okay. Who said? I didn't limit Linda's 12. So
Trying to invite somebody on the group. I'm chatting with them in India, kind of on the side, and they're wanting to know, and I don't know how to invite him, but maybe anyway.
Well, chat with Trevor afterwards.
I can help you figure that out.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to take up time doing this because we're wrapping it up. But anyway,
yeah, we are.
Awesome.
Trevor.
See you on Thursday.
Absolutely.
Yeah, see you soon.
Yep. So these are all the people that are. John is coming to Edmonton. Jackie's coming to Edmonton. Trevor's in Edmonton. I'm here, and we've got quite a few more. We've got 17 people, 15 people that are learning mind model coach training. So we topped out a group we were targeting 10 people to pay, and that's it. We definitely topped that. So anyway, Trevor, for you.
I thought tonight was really good. I actually wasn't really familiar with the concept of negative space. So that was a big light bulb for me, and how it's kind of like a opposite side of the coin. And I was taking a bunch of notes when you were talking with Linda, and I think I had a few breakthroughs with that, just figuring out that I'm often, when I'm evaluating, still only looking at that one side of the coin and not the negative space, and just sort of testing and playing with that in my mind. It seemed to open up a lot of possibilities, just kind of like what Jacqueline was saying. And cool. It just seemed like a new approach of evaluating and moving forward with problems that simplifies things. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited to try it out.
Super. 1 to 10 for you?
I'd give today 10.
Oh, I think you did. Sorry, I forgot.
Nope. Okay. That was the first time the number came out of my mouth.
Okay, cool.
Unless my memory's going on.
Okay. Mine could be. Anyway, and thank you very much, Jamie. I was going to ask you how excellent. I'd give it a 10 as well. And yeah, I wish you were in Edmonton with us too, but next time. So looking forward to that. And with that, I think this is a wrap for the evening. So trying to keep it down to a dull roar of under 3 hours. So an hour and 23 minutes and ain't too bad. So, okay. You guys take care, and you guys have a great week. And I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you so much.
Bye for now.
Have a good night, guys.
Good night.